Welcome to our new podcast, Building Astropad. I'm Matt Runge, co-founder and CEO at Astropad, and I'll be taking you behind the scenes at our company, where we build software and hardware products for creative people. So if you're a creator, interested in bootstrapping a business, or starting your next big project, join us in learning together. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Matt Runge, and I am CEO and co-founder at Astropad. And I'm here with Savannah. Savannah, want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Savannah Reesing, and I am the marketing director for Astropad. I've been on the team for about 4 years now. So been along for the ride, and there have been lots of ups and downs, which
That's
we're
for
going to
sure.
talk about a little bit.
Yeah, so what are we going to talk about today? What ups and downs are we going to talk about today?
Well, we are coming up on the 1-year anniversary of Astropad getting sherlocked by Apple. And so I want to talk about like what that experience looked like, in the immediate aftermath, but then also everything that's happened in the last year and what we're up to now, because we have a lot of stuff on the horizon, and yeah, it's been a lot of ups and downs. So I think we should start with going back to a year ago, talking about actually getting sherlocked. But I didn't even know what sherlocked meant before Sidecar came out a year ago. So do you want to give like a little
Yeah,
overview of what it is?
yeah, we can start there. So Sherlocking is it's a term that's been around for a while, I think since the late 90s, when Apple copied this third-party utility that helped search the internet. It was called Watson. And Apple made their own version and called it Sherlock. So not only was the name was pretty much a blatant ripoff, but the software itself was also pretty blatant ripoff of what the third-party developer Watson was doing. And so it's become kind of infamous in the Apple developer ecosystem of being Sherlocked, and Apple has done it, many times to many developers over the years.
Are there any like big developer names that come to mind when you think of sherlocking in the, I don't know, recent history?
Oh, in terms of recent history, well, there was a bunch last year at WWDC. I'm trying to think who else.
I think Tile, right? They kind of got
Tiles,
Sherlock.
yeah, Tiles one that's going to be coming up here. That it hasn't really been released yet.
Oh, okay.
Apple's, but it's totally around. It's totally around the corner. And well, that actually has the Tile situation actually has a lot of parallels to ours actually, which will be interesting to get into a bit. Otherwise, oh man, off the top of my head, I'm not coming up with great
Mhm.
examples. But there's been generally every WWDC, Apple's developer conference, people are like, okay, who's getting Sherlock this year?
Yeah, I remember watching, in my first few years at Astropad, like watching the WWDC conference, and everyone would be kind of on the edge of their seat. Well, it was over Slack, but like everyone would be like, oh no, are they going to start talking about screen sharing or iPads and Mac integration? And then last year that finally happened. So yeah, did you see it
Yeah,
coming?
no, no, and so we'd always been worried about it. We'd always been worried. It seemed like a very natural feature for Apple to do. The thing that always kept us feeling somewhat safe is Apple's always had this very clear distinction between they don't want the Mac to be a touchscreen computer, right? They want the iPad for that. And as soon as you put the Mac screen onto the iPad, it really becomes like a touchscreen Mac. And we're like, they're just not going to want to do that. They're going to refuse to do that. It comes with all sorts of weird trade-offs that we've seen, when using our products, Astropad and Lunar Display, and we just didn't think Apple was going to do that. But they did, and they did it by turning off touch interaction on the iPad. So that's their way of dealing with it. You can't do touch in their version. But to back up a bit, to explain that as well, so our first product is called Astropad, and it turns the iPad into a high-end drawing tablet, really for professional work where you want to draw onto the Mac. And we had a spin-off product from that that's actually a hardware device that turns the iPad into a second display, a wireless second display. And you can interact with the device and touch it and pan and zoom and everything just like you would on an iOS, regular iOS app, but it's actually connected to your Mac. It shows up as a screen on your Mac. And so those are our two main products. And Apple last year at WWDC introduced a competing feature that's bundled with the Catalina operating system called Sidecar that actually includes both features. It includes being able to create a second display on the iPad, and it allows you to use the pencil to draw into Mac apps. So it was really a real shot across the bow because it really hit both of our products. And one of the reasons we did Luna Display originally as well was not only was it going to make our first product Astropad better, but we were always concerned, like, what if Apple did introduce a touch Mac with pencil support? All of a sudden, Astropad would be obsolete overnight. And so we thought, okay, if we can also use our technology to make the iPad work as a second display, even if Apple introduces a Mac that supports pencil, well, our other product, Luna, that turns the iPad into a second display, will still be useful. So that was kind of the thinking there. We never thought that it would be both at the same time.
And I remember like rumors came out about Sidecar in April. And when we heard those, we started kind of plotting like, okay, so if it does this and it has these features, then we'll
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
right.
position Astropad like this. Or on the other hand, if it, doesn't have pencil support, then we can take kind of a different route. But I don't know, I think we prepared as best as we could, but we were still surprised by how Sidecar was being presented by Apple.
Yeah, we were surprised by how big of a tentpole feature it was for the macOS Catalina. We were surprised to the extent at which they built it out, and even features that we were thinking about doing in the future that they had built in there. Like we were thinking about the local Wi-Fi support, where you don't have to have a Wi-Fi router nearby, is one that we've been talking about for a while that they actually built in there as well. So it was pretty shocking, to say the least.
And I think the other reason why we were so surprised was because Apple had been kind of courting us for a while, which I don't know how much of we can talk about this.
Sure.
But yeah, they had been in touch with us and it seemed like they were really interested in what we were doing. But I guess we thought they had different motives than what they were actually up to.
Yeah, for sure. And we could probably that could be its own episode in itself, just on
Yeah,
just
for
everything
sure.
leading up to it. Yeah, we had certainly been in communication with people at Apple, and we kind of figured that okay, they were going to help promote us, or if they really wanted to do it, that they would come knocking with perhaps acquisition offer, and that would be our tip off that they were doing it. But instead, we were surprised. We were surprised first with a leak to the press, actually, that tipped us off first, and then it was WWDC that it really things came crashing down on us.
Yeah. So what for you, like what did that feel like? Cuz I know what I felt like watching that WWC keynote last year. Like I remember I like shut my computer off and like went for a really long walk because I was like, "Oh my gosh, I literally don't know what is going to happen." But you're the CEO. So what did that feel like for you?
Yeah, it was devastating, right? Like here's something that we've bootstrapped this company up. We've never raised outside investment. It's all been on the hard work of everybody on the team, and we've built it through sales to customers. And my co-founder Giovanni and we had spent so many late nights years ago building the first version of Astropad and building some of the initial technology. It just felt like in the moment that all of that was crashing down, that it was all burning to the ground, and it was like, oh my god, I'm gonna walk away with like nothing from this. Like it's gonna be, this is all over. That's what I was fearing in the moment.
And there was more at stake because it wasn't just you and Giovanni
No,
anymore.
not at
Like we were
all.
a team of like 12 or 13
Yeah,
people at that point.
absolutely. So that that sense of responsibility too, that it's like, wow, we really need to pull through this for our team, for everyone. So it was really, yeah, it was really devastating. And yeah, I just wondered, like, how are we going to get out of this, right? Like, I knew we had to. I knew so much was on the line that I knew So the first day was really just shock, just
Mhm.
total shock. And but by the second or third day, I started to feel like a caged animal. I was just mad. I was just ready to fight back.
Yeah, I kinda went through, like, almost feelings of grief or, like, the
Yeah,
stages of grief where it's like, first you're in shock, and then you're just pissed, and then maybe there's, like, denial in there somewhere, and
absolutely. Oh, there was totally denial. I remember waking up the next morning and being like, "Was that a bad dream?" Like literally, like
really?
waking up and being
Wow.
like, "Did I dream that? Did this really happen? Like, was that a nightmare? Because that's a really bad nightmare." And there was like, "Oh shit, it's
Yeah.
this is real. I need to deal with this." And then on top of it, try to get myself together also for the rest of the team too, because people are looking for answers.
Well, yeah, and we had immediately social media blowing up, but not in a good way. And
Not in a good way at
people
all.
just saying, like, rest in peace, Astropad, like, you guys are done. And we had to respond to those people. Like, we had to put something out there. And especially because we have a lot of customers who rely on our products every day. And I think they were worried too that we were going to abandon them. And so I think after like some of those stages, it was like, okay, we got to pull it together and say something publicly about what's going on. Like we couldn't just deny it. So we like, I remember you and Giovanni put out like a message from the founders saying, the message was pretty much like, we're not going anywhere and we're not going to abandon our customers and we're going to like keep innovating. And I think that was the right thing to do instead of just like sitting back and letting social media like rip us apart.
Yeah, absolutely. And the marketing team did an awesome job too, responding there, just like quick, just getting stuff out there, contacting the press, getting our message out there. Like, hey, we're not going anywhere. We're going if we're going down, we're going down with a fight. Was pretty
Yeah.
much the attitude.
We pretty much like deliberately turned the narrative around because at first, yeah, there were press articles that was like, they were like, Astropad is done. And then we put out that message from the founders, and the headlines started switching and saying, like, we're not giving up. Astropad isn't giving up. Like, they're going to stick around and keep fighting. And it just turned the whole thing into something more positive. And I think people looked at that and they saw, well, this is a really great company with that does innovative things, and maybe, they'll come up with something great next. And I can't wait to see what happens. At least that's what I hope people were thinking when they saw those headlines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, what else was going through your mind at that initial week? Like, what else?
I was like, am I gonna have a job? Like, who am I gonna work for?
Yeah, yeah.
For sure, like, I thought about that. I think I called a friend and I was like, "I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen." But, yeah, I mean, you know me, I love the press and, like, controversy and all of that, and so it was really I don't know, I got fired up about responding to all of that, and, yeah, taking a time or taking the moment to I don't know, make something better out of it. And I think it got better and better too, because when the betas started coming out and people actually started trying Sidecar, and it was like, wow, this actually is not going to replace our products. And, we still have something to offer. It just felt better. And over the last year, I don't know, Sidecar seems like less and less of a threat to us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, well, because we're still here a year later recording this podcast, and
Yeah,
the
can't get
same
rid of
team.
us.
Yeah, we don't go away easily, and it's still the same team. We never had to do layoffs. Nobody left the team. We're still chugging along there. And I remember that was one of the first things I had to do after that too. Is I like went and I started in Excel and I started to do like financial projections. Like, okay, what if things go down by 50%? What if they go down by 70%? What if they go down, different scenarios, and then plot out, okay, what does it look like? Right. So we did that. And then we were able to go to the team and be like, hey, look, like everybody still has a job. We're not laying everybody off. That was like really important to do quickly because we figured everybody was worried about that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was well, and I remember, like, in the first hours after Sidecar was announced, like, you were pretty quiet, like, you didn't really say much, and I was like, I know he's probably like in shock and like processing all of this, but also like the whole team is waiting. Like the whole team needs to hear what you have to say. And I think it was really important for you in that moment to like come out and be a cheerleader for the team, because if you didn't sound positive and like hyped up about fighting, then why would anyone want to stick around, like you really had to sell the team on the vision for the company at that point, because it felt pretty dire. But I think you did a good job of that. And I am curious to hear, like, what did your conversations look like with Giovanni in that time? Like, did you guys know that right away that we had a plan in our back pocket, or was it like, I don't know, it took some time to figure out?
Well, we did to a certain extent. The conversations between us, I would say at that time, were, well, we weren't giving up. There was no way we were giving up. It was just like, what direction do we go in? And there was really two schools of thought. And we even talked with, external advisors about this as well. It was, okay, do we bring our current products to, say, a new platform like Windows or Android or, some other combination? Do we look for new fertile ground elsewhere? Or do we try to build a completely new product altogether? And that was some of the discussion. And at different times, we were on different sides of it. Often Giovanni would be like, I want to do something completely new. Let's do something completely new. And I'd be like, let's go to Windows, and we kind of go back and forth.
And there was probably a third option in there too, which was like, should we just put all of our engineering efforts at building new features
Oh yes.
into our existing products to, help them compete better with Sidecar? But I don't feel like that was a good long-term approach.
No, and that's probably why I didn't even mention it, because we didn't seriously consider that one for long, because we're like, look, free bundled with the operating system is really hard to compete with. That is really hard. So we need an alternate plan. And that's where Windows came in. And it's interesting that, looking back after a year now, we're actually pursuing both plans in a way where we have, so there's been multiple tracks. We've been calling them, multiple trains or multiple tracks going on at once. Where the main one, where almost all the engineering effort, marketing effort, everything going into is really porting our products to Windows. That's the main track. But there's also been a track with some other folks on the team working on building out completely new products as well. And so those are a little further off, but that's still as well. And I didn't realize we ended up there until reflecting on this past year and where we started, but we have ended up in a position where the primary task is to get to Windows, but then the secondary is also to open up new markets with new products as well. That's coming along.
Hardware products.
Hardware products, yes, yes, yes. Yes, hardware products, which we do have ideas for other software products too, but it just so happens right now that our hardware team has availability to work on hardware products, and we got tons of ideas there as well.
Yeah, I think it would have been dangerous if we had stayed in the mindset of like, let's just keep adding more and more features to Luna and Astropad. Like, of course we want to do that, and we have a lot of ideas for that, but if we had gotten stuck in that, we would always be competing with Apple. And that is a dangerous place to be. I think before Sidecar, we didn't see Apple as a competitor, but they are a competitor. Like, we live on their platform, but they also sherlocked us. And so I think the decision to go cross-platform to Windows is beneficial to, our future Windows customers, but also our existing customers, because it helps us literally live longer and not risk getting sherlocked again.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's something we wanted to do for a long time as well, to get to Windows, but it's been a really hard project.
Yeah, why did we put it off for so long?
Yeah, so Windows has been a really hard project. And yeah, we did put it off for so long. And that's not for lack of trying, actually. We did try multiple times in the past. We looked into ways that we could port our software stack to Windows. So some background here is our products run on, we have some proprietary technology we call Liquid. It's a combination of really low latency, high quality video codec coupled with a network protocol that's written for Wi-Fi and written for the needs of Astropad and Luna. And that stuff is all written in Objective-C, which is really the language of Apple's platforms. And it's not well supported outside of the Apple ecosystem. So we had all this huge amount of code written specifically for Apple's platform. And you might say, well, why did you guys do that? Why didn't you write it in something that could work across all sorts of different platforms? Well, to understand that, you have to go to the mindset of when we first shipped Astropad 1.0. And at that point, we were trying to get to a 1.0 as fast as possible. And it happened to be that the language we knew the best was Objective-C. So we ended up building this technology base. And so we tried to figure out how we could get it to Windows. And we talked to other companies that had done it. There had been different, frameworks from Microsoft and different GNU step and different ways to port it to other operating systems. But ultimately, none of them felt like a viable long-term solution. And they were a ton of work even then. And seeing now over the past year, we've made tremendous progress on running our products on Windows. And just seeing how much work that is, we've taken all the software engineers on the team, and they're all working 100% on Windows. So going back 2 years ago and being like, hey, we're going to stop all future development and we're just going to put everybody to work on Windows would have been a really bitter pill to swallow. So it really required something as drastic as Apple competing with us to be like, we have no other choice. Like, all the other bridges have been burned. We need to get to Windows. And this is going to be really hard, but we have no other choice. And it's paying off. It's paying off building now this platform that's going to be cross-platform with our Liquid tech. And we're going to be able to build not only Astropad and Luna for Windows, but also new products in the future as well off of it.
Yeah. So we couldn't see it at the time. A year ago, we couldn't see this, but Sidecar really was like a blessing in disguise because it really pushed us in a direction that we needed to go. And it was there were trade-offs for sure. Like, you can't do everything. You can't keep adding new features and go cross-platform and launch new products. Like, we were a team of 12 or 13 people. So, but yeah, Sidecar helped push us in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been a blessing in disguise. If I went back to me a year ago, I would never have said that at the time. But now some of the transformation we've gone through, it's really setting us up to be a company that can last for the long term.
Mm-hmm. And well, you should talk a little bit, just touch on briefly why we're working in Rust, because that's been a big thing for the engineering team.
That's a good point. So part of the problem before with also getting to Windows is we looked at porting Objective-C and we were like, this is not going to work. So we're like, okay, let's rewrite our code. Like, maybe we should start rewriting our code and replacing parts of it over time. But we just didn't have the plan to do that. We were looking at what could we use? Could we use like C++ to write it in? We're like, well, nobody's fired up about doing that. And then one of our engineers, Jeremy, brought Rust forward and was like, hey, there's this new pretty cutting edge language that's cross-platform. It's really high performance. It can be good for like low-level software like our technology stack. And a lot of companies are jumping on it. Like, it's heavily backed by Mozilla. This could be a good option. And we looked at it and yeah, it looked great. It looked like a great language to build cross-platform software in. And people on our team were really fired up about it. Like, they were excited about porting our code to Rust versus if previously, for those, that know programming languages, I'd said like, hey, we're going to port it to C++. Well, nobody was excited about that. But Rust, people were excited about. And it seemed like a language that was going to be high performance. It was going to help cut down errors in our code with its type checking system. And it was going to really build a solid platform for the future. And so that was great. And that was really one of the missing pieces we needed. And that kicked off the early development of our Liquid platform, was then started in Rust.
And if I'm understanding this correctly, it is going to be faster code too for our current products like on Mac. So it's not just, bringing us to Windows, but it's going to be making the experience better for all of our existing Mac users.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's going to be faster and it's going to be more secure just by nature of using Rust. It's a really powerful language, and we'll be using it certainly for all of our future products.
I want to go back a little bit to what we were talking about earlier with like team morale and like financial stuff post sidecar, because yeah, I think that was really impactful for the team for how you ended up handling that with, being our cheerleader and making sure that no one was concerned about their job security. So what did you do as a CEO to make sure that people felt secure in their jobs?
Yeah, so the really big change for us as a bootstrap company is we had generally month to month had been profitable. That's how we operated. We added people to the team when we had more profits to cover that. And so we grew slowly and steadily. And then all of a sudden with Sidecar, we saw our revenue going down drastically. And Luna, so Astropad revenue didn't take a hit for a while. Luna revenue took a big hit quickly. I'm talking almost 10x, practically overnight, that our revenue went down on Luna. So it was a big shock to the system. And people were seeing sales numbers. People knew this. People knew that revenue had really fallen off, right? And we had never really talked about like cash on hand. We'd never really talked about profit that much. We'd really only talked previously in terms of sales. And I realized that if anyone was going to believe me, that people still had their jobs and that we had some runway to get to Windows, that we had to open things up and we had to let people know. We had to let people judge for themselves. Because otherwise, they weren't going to take what I was saying seriously. They're just going to be like, well, maybe they're just saying it. Maybe their tolerance for risk is different than mine. But instead, it was like, okay, we need to open up our books. We need to show the team how much cash we have, how much we're burning, what our runway looks like, everything laid out there. So they can make the call themselves too and be like, am I comfortable with this situation? And yeah, I think it's been a good change too. There was been a bunch of changes like that we'd always thought about doing. And all of a sudden, with Sidecar, there wasn't time to second guess. It was just go. It was just do it.
Yeah, and it's been a good change that's stuck around. Like every quarter now, we talk about what our not only what our sales are looking like, but where we are with our cash on hand. And one of the things that I love that changed after Sidecar is we have these like open-ended questions portions of our weekly meetings. And especially in those weeks after Sidecar, the weeks and months, you would get kind of grilled by the team. Like people would have questions about finances, and it was all open to questioning. And I think that helped people feel more secure because it didn't feel like you were hiding anything.
Yeah, and how Giovanni and I, again, my co-founder and the head of product at Astropad, how we've talked about it in the past too is, look, we've got really smart people on our team. You can't BS them, right? So like, we better just be frank. We better just tell them the truth. Let's tell them what's going on. Like, they're gonna see through it. They're smart people too, and so they may even see things that we don't see. So it's better just to get it out there and just be open about it. It's a lot easier. Like, I thought we were being transparent prior to this, but I realized we really weren't. We really needed to crank it up a level, and it's been beneficial.
So, what did the prognosis look like for the team a year ago? Like what did you tell us about, how long we could survive before getting to Windows or launching another product, or what did that look like?
Yeah, yeah. So it's changed throughout the year as well for a very positive reason, though, and that it never impacted us as badly as we thought it might. I think in the summer I was talking about we had runway to go a year, and we needed to launch a Kickstarter in the early part of 2020. Which, granted, we haven't done yet. We're talking this today. What's June 2020? We haven't launched the Kickstarter yet, but that's okay because of, well, actually, a couple things we did. We should talk about, like, so the marketing team was pushing a lot of sales to keep things going. Which maybe you want to talk about that.
Yeah, well, that was like I would say July through November of December of 2019 where we were running a lot of sales trying to close this gap that we were seeing between, our spending and what we were bringing in. And that worked well. It did work to close the gap, and we had months where we weren't, dipping into our cash reserves. But the problem is that over time, we felt like we were fatiguing our audience, constantly going back to the same group of people, asking them to buy our products, which they already had. And
Hmm.
that brought up a whole set of other discussions around,
Yep.
realizing that we do need to launch new products and especially new hardware products. And so we kind of put the sales on pause. Like starting in 2020, we were like, we're not going to worry about, sales and getting rid of inventory or anything. We decided instead to focus on some branding issues, some like pretty core, like fundamental branding issues that we had known about for a long time, but we had just never had the opportunity to address them. For a long time, we had talked about wanting to have more of a parent brand for the company because we had our products, Astropad Standard, Astropad Studio, and then Luna Display, but no real umbrella brand that was uniting all of them. And we knew that in the future we were going to launch more products, but we didn't want all of the extra work of having to launch a whole new brand without leveraging the existing brand equity that we already had. And so we decided to, put our product branding not on the back burner, but make it, sit in the passenger seat next to our parent brand, Astropad, the name of our company. And we decided to, launch a new website, bring all of our products into just one website. So merge in all of our separate websites. And that was a lot of work. That was pretty much the first half of 2020 that we were working on that, where we had to, merge our Shopify site in with our new WordPress site. And it was a big job. And we're only 3 people on the marketing team. So we were pretty tied up with that for a while.
Yeah, and we're realizing more and more that that was the right decision to, because we broke out Luna Display in its own brand initially, and
Which made sense at the time.
yeah, yeah, going back to our shoes, then yeah,
Yeah. It just wasn't a good long-term strategy.
we've definitely outgrown it, and the talk too of we have other hardware products in development. Well, we don't want to do a new brand for each one of those,
Yeah.
so that's why I think it's really for the long term going to be the better call. And another thing we should talk about that happened within the past year, like that also really helped out, was not only the sales, and we knew like we didn't want to be keep going back to our list like that and keep contacting our customers, but we were really waiting for the other shoe to drop, and how we saw it is like we wanted to stick around, and so we wanted to close that gap so we could hang on to our cash as long as possible. And as you said, that worked really well. And then another thing that I think was a pretty pivotal moment for us was when we released Mac to Mac support that we were calling
Yeah.
Big Mac
Oh, yeah, Big
internally
Mac.
for Luna Display. That was a big deal.
Yeah, so we launched Mac to Mac support, which meant that you could now use a Mac as a second display for your primary Mac. And again, I think people had been requesting this feature for a long time. And this was something that really set us apart from Sidecar. So, yeah, that happened around October of last year. And I mean, it was a good sales bump, but also I think it just sent a good message to our customers, saying like, hey, we're going to keep pushing and making sure that this product is better and better for you.
Yeah, I think both for our customers and for our team too. And I remember we got a bunch of kudos from the press where they're like, "Yeah, this is how you deal with being Sherlocked. You come up with something new,
Mhm.
innovative." And so we were really proud of that.
Yeah, but the team definitely needed that too, just as like a morale booster because it was tough for a while after, in those months after Sidecar was announced. So we needed a win as a team, something to make us feel good. So,
Yeah, and Mac to Mac today still continues to do well for us. Like some people buy Lunar Display just for the Mac to Mac support still.
mhm.
So it was really good. And even how we did that too was interesting. Like all the engineers on the team were still focused on Windows. Like they never took their eye off building us the Rust code base for Windows that whole time. But then our co-founder Giovanni, he just went off on like a mission for like a month, just kind of almost went dark and was just like, I'm going to put this together, right? And he put together Mac to Mac so we could respond quickly. Again, the kind of thing we typically wouldn't do in an ordinary scenario, but this was no ordinary time, and we were like, we need this, right? So we were pulling out all the stops, including, him going off and just working on building a brand new future for us like that.
Yeah. So, at the time, like a year ago, we didn't know what was in store for us with Sidecar, but I think putting it all together, I am proud of what we did to kind of pivot after that. Everything from, seizing the narrative at the beginning and making sure that we were sending the right message to the press, but then launching Mac to Mac, Big Mac, and sending the right message to our customers, and then giving ourselves a chance to take a step back and work on the fundamentals of our branding and getting that all in a good spot before we go over to this huge new Windows market. Yeah, I think a year ago, I didn't know what to expect, but looking back now, I'm really am satisfied with how we handled everything. I don't know, would you have done anything differently?
Ooh, that's a good question. Would I have done anything differently? Nothing's coming to mind right now because I'm also like really happy with how things have come, and we're not finished with porting our stuff to Windows, and in the coming months we'll have a public beta of Astropad available. We're not there yet, but the end is in sight. We see the light at the end of the tunnel at this point, which a year ago we were just starting out on this like mission into the unknown. We're like, we've never developed for Windows. What's this going to be like? And now we have a lot more under our belt. Yeah, no, I think it's been a year where we've had to grow a lot as a company. Not in terms of size, but just in terms of like what we do and like stretching ourselves and dealing with new situations. And everybody's come a really long way, and I think it's really setting us up to be around for the long term and not just being like a one trick pony within the Apple ecosystem.
Mhm. Yeah, and another thing too is a major thing that happened in the last year was in March, COVID-19 and the pandemic and everything hit. And in a way, I think everything that we went through before that helped us to be better prepared as a company to handle the pandemic and all of the, economic uncertainty in the world, because we had already been doing like, cutting costs and things like that. And so when that hit, I know we had just already been through so much. Like we had given ourselves enough of a cushion to like handle something else.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember talking to people at other companies too and being like, how's everything going at your company? How are you handling the COVID stuff? And it was like, well, actually, we're one of the lucky few here because we had already buckled down like previously the year before, with me and Sherlocked, we had cut costs. We never had to let anybody go, but we cut services that weren't essential. We massively cut our ad spending. There was a number of those things like that. So we really battened down the ship for a storm. And we were a team that works remote as well. So when that all hit, it was like, okay, we've already been in like storm mode for a while now. So this doesn't feel that different.
That's another episode we should do, is running a fully remote company, because there's probably a lot to say about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've been doing it since the beginning too. In fact, going back even to when the company was first formed in 2013, we really got started in 2015. Technically, the company was formed in 2013. But Giovanni and I have never been in the same city while working on the same, he's always been in San Francisco. I've been in Minneapolis. And yeah, we've been remote from day one. So yeah, we have a lot to say about that as well. that we could do a whole episode on.
We should give a little preview too of some of the stuff that we have coming up, like in the company, because you mentioned we're going to do a public beta for Astropad Studio on Windows coming up this summer, and then sometime after that, we are planning on launching a Kickstarter for Luna HDMI for Windows. So we have a lot of stuff coming up, and I'm especially excited about the Kickstarter because our first Kickstarter that we did back in 2017 went way better than I ever expected. And so I'm trying to beat that this time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, good things coming up in the rest of the year.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in the pipeline. The Kickstarter, I'm also especially excited about. I've been playing around, using I use a Lenovo laptop now a lot, and been playing around with the Windows builds of our software, and Luna's looking really good on Windows. So I'm excited to get that out there too, the Kickstarter, and get people's impressions of it. I think the Windows is going to be a big opportunity
Mhm.
there as well. And it's something I wish we had done way earlier. Maybe that's the one thing you asked earlier, what I had done differently. Wish we had gone to Windows way earlier, right?
Mhm.
Like just had forced ourselves to go cross platform way, way earlier. And that's been a lesson for the future as well, is like anything we do in the future will be built in a way that it can be cross platform, or it can be web based, or it can be, we never want to be tied down in the situation again where one platform has total control over one of our products. We're not going to get that. We learned our lesson the hard way,
Yeah.
as often happens, and we're not going to do that again.
Well, that was going to be one of my other questions for you because WWDC is coming up next week, and I'm sure there will be other third-party developers watching, hoping that they don't get Sherlocked. And if you could give them one piece of advice to take away from our experience, what would it be? Would it be, go cross-platform as soon as you can? What would you say?
Yeah, so it depends on. There's really like two strategies. Go cross platform. That may make sense for your particular situation. In our situation, that makes a lot of sense to go cross platform. And we had customers asking for it for years anyway. So we knew the customer base was there. It was really like the safe choice for us to make. The other one is to double down on advanced features. And an example I really like to use for this one is 1Password. And actually, 1Password has both the cross-platform and the features thing gone. But to elaborate a bit more, Apple introduced, I don't know exactly what they call it, like iCloud passwords, something along those lines, where it'll synchronize and save your passwords between devices. And this was a total shot across the bow. Password managers like 1Password. The thing is Apple's functionality is really limited. So if you're like a team, say like us, that needs to share passwords, that's not going to work for you. And so we are a paying customer of 1Password because we want their team support, because it works really well for us. It's much more advanced. So if you can do that, that's a great option, that you can build in really advanced features that are just going to completely set you apart from anything Apple's doing. That's a good option as well. For us, we just couldn't see anything that was going to be an absolute killer feature that was going to set us. I mean, Mac to Mac was a killer feature for Luna, but outside of that, especially for Astropad 2, we just didn't know what was going to be the killer feature to really, really, really distinguish us. It seemed like going cross platform was more powerful. And so that's the choice. So those are both two good options. In the case of 1Password, they're also cross-platform. So if you're somebody that has an Android tablet or an Android phone and also a Mac, and you want to synchronize passwords, well, you're gonna use 1Password because Apple stuff doesn't work there. So they've really got both things going for them, which is really strong. It was really great.
But we were talking about advice to other third-party developers.
Yeah, and it's really go cross-platform, build those advanced features that are going to set you apart from Apple. Do the stuff that they're not going to do, because they're going to move much slower than you are.
So looking at where we are at today, we're getting ready to launch on Windows, all of that. What would you say are the biggest challenges that we're facing now?
Yeah, it still relates to going cross-platform, because not only is it building for cross-platform, but there's more than just that, right? Like a lot of us on the team are Mac people and have been in the Mac ecosystem for a long, long time. I mean, Giovanni and I met as Apple interns years ago at Apple. Like we're very versed in the Apple ecosystem. We know it very well. We know we have contacts. We have both at Apple and in the press. We understand the customer very well. So there's a lot of new things to understand about the Windows market. And how do we market to people on the Windows market? How do we develop press contacts for the Windows market? How do we support customers in the Windows market? What are going to be the major customer support issues you run into? That's totally new to us. The outside of you,
Yeah.
we're totally going to figure it out. And we also hired some people too onto the team that have really a Windows background too, that has been really great because they've been able to put new energy into the team and new knowledge. They're not Mac people; they've been working on Windows a long time, so that's been really helpful. But that's still the big challenge. Is there's a lot of unknown unknowns when
Yeah.
it comes to Windows, but we'll get through it. There's just a lot of work to go. So
It's like the Wild West for us. And there's so much to learn about Windows customers and users. And, we've been doing lots of surveys to try to get to know them. And even as artists, artists on Windows they're doing different kinds of art. There's
absolutely,
more like 3D work. And so there's a lot to learn. And yeah, I don't have any doubt that we'll figure it out. But it's way deeper than just developing the product for Windows. There's all these facets, support, marketing that play into it.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The other thing is it's been a fun challenge though. Like it's something new. It's for a lot of us, it's a new thing. And so it's been fun to dig in. I've been having fun. It's been a long time since I've used Windows extensively, so it's fun to learn something new and to learn a new ecosystem. And yeah, it's a new challenge, and I think that's what a lot of us thrive on too. If we get bored, it's not good. So we always want a new challenge.
Oh yeah, we like the spice, as I would
Absolutely,
say.
the spice. Absolutely, yeah.
For sure.
Well, anything else from the?
I don't know. I thought of a lot of potential episode topics as we were talking through this. Like I could talk about Kickstarter all
Yeah,
day long.
we definitely need to talk about Kickstarter. We're gonna do that.
Kickstarter, working remote,
Yep.
branding.
Yep.
Wow, there's
Yep.
a
A
lot
lot of lessons
to
learned.
dive
Yeah.
into.
Yeah. We generally learn things the hard way too by going through it. So
I mean, we learn things by doing
yeah, absolutely.
them. And then, yeah, maybe it's the hard way, but we take something away from everything that we do.
Yeah.
And at the very least, it's usually a good blog post,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good story. It's a good story.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Savannah.
This was fun.
Yeah, we can end it here. Yeah, this is definitely fun. And yeah, so if you're listening to this, let us know what you think and let us know if there's other future topics you'd like us to talk about. Till then, take care now.
All right.